Welcome back to Wordy and Nerdy. I'm Marin.
I'm John.
And today we are going to talk to you about Black Widow.
A movie that should have been released 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes, indeed.
By the way, before we continue, this will be a spoiler review.
Oh yes, this will be spoilers. I don't like talking about movies without spoiling them.
Yeah.
Not that, I mean, but even to that effect, the whole movie is basically like a spoiler because it happens chronologically before a bunch of stuff we've already seen, so it's kind of like nothing that happens in this movie really matters.
Yeah, to be honest, there's not much a spoiler for this movie.
Yeah, there really isn't much to spoil because most of the stuff you either already knew about Natasha or it doesn't. Who cares?
Yeah.
But we'll get into it. But yes, I mean chronologically, for those who don't know, this happens between like Civil War and Infinity War.
Yep.
This happens like chronologically it's like 2016, I think.
Yep.
And which is kind of crazy. I think somebody else pointed out that like it's interesting to have a movie like this that takes place like in this time period because it's kind of like who cares? Like Civil War was so long ago. Obama was still president, and it was just like like so much has happened since then. Who's really invested in something that happened 4 or 5 years ago?
And I believe that's our main issue with the movie.
Yeah, so basically it starts out with Natalie as a kid. She's like 12 or something, riding her bike, and she's in a normal suburban lifestyle or whatever, and she's riding her bike. She goes and plays with her little sister, and then their mom calls them in to eat, and then the dad comes home and says that we have to go, and at this point the audience doesn't know exactly what that means, but the family quickly throws their kids in the car and stuff, just grabs a couple possessions and heads off, and then find out they're being chased by S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
And his dad has sensitive information or whatever that they need to get to Hydra or
to this Russian mafia.
Yeah, Russia, KGB, something like that. But anyway, and so they're like, oh, is this Nat's family, whatever, and it kind of establishes later there's this whole situation, and young Nat has to steer a plane to get them out of the whole thing. Plus, you figure out that her father figure is like a super soldier because he can lift really heavy stuff, and then they come to this place where the Russian spies are taking the information and they kidnap Nat and her sister and take them to this training zone, and then there's this very weird montage that happens over the opening credits of a very weird
a Jason Bourne movie.
It was so strange, and there was this really reminded me very much of how trailers these days, every trailer has some slowed down indie version of some popular song. It's always hilarious every time. They try to make it so overly serious. It's what is happening here? Even in the Ultron trailer when they sing the Pinocchio song, and it's no strings on me. It's what's happening? But you just see flashes of these little girls being taken to this camp or whatever, and flash forward to the modern day, and you basically come to figure out all of that was the Red Room, which is the training room where all the Black Widows, because apparently Black Widow is not just a title for Nat, it's a title for all of these women. They're all women, all girls, who have been trained by this Russian supervillain to be these super spies, and he brainwashes them, and at some point, I guess he didn't do this to Natasha, but he did it to her sister and everybody else, where he did this brain chemistry thing, a technology which controls them. He can physically control them.
The whole MacGuffin of this movie is trying to get the Sting to free the other spies, pretty much.
Yes, they come. There's this red dust that will help break the spell and stop the mind control or whatever. And so Florence Pugh's character, she is an adult, she's also a spy, and she ends up she chases down and kills another former widow who went rogue, but not before that widow is able to expose her to the red dust and break the mind control. She takes it and she mails it to Natasha, and Natasha doesn't even realize what it is until she gets attacked by this character called Taskmaster, who's just this robot type person that doesn't say anything, but they have this mission to get the red dust and keep it from being used to break the spell.
Yeah, for the people who are looking forward to the Taskmaster, they pretty much did Terminator 2 with this person. Pretty much just doesn't talk, doesn't really do much.
Yeah,
really.
If the comic fans were oh, Taskmaster's in this, yes and no. I mean, yes, but not to any exciting degree. So apparently, while Natasha was doing that Budapest mission, the famed Budapest mission with or Budapest,
which we don't see, by the way.
With Hawkeye, there's a flashback to where she needs to try to blow up this guy, the main villain, and so she apparently used his daughter to lure them to the villain so that they knew for so that they could be sure that it was him. I feel like there are other ways to figure that out, but okay. And so she fully knowingly blows up the building with this little girl inside of it, as well as the main bad guy. Turns out he survived, and so, but when Natasha talks about the red in her ledger, apparently that's one of the things that she straight up murdered a 10-year-old. And right when that happened, I was already starting to think like, I wonder if this child is really dead. Partly because it was established that her father, the evil guy, is not dead. He survived the explosion. So I'm like, if he survived it, then she could have survived it. And also, Marvel likes to keep their characters fairly redeemable, and I just don't know if there's any coming back from willingly murdered a child. So I just kind of felt like that was not going to be the end of that story. And I was right. Turns out the daughter also survived, but they did kind of the cyborg thing from Justice League where her dad had to like put a robot chip in her brain and turn her into like a cyborg or something to keep her alive after because the explosion like messed up her face and stuff. Even though they keep saying you destroyed her, you blew off her face or whatever, she really just has like some scarring on one side of her face. She looks fine. Like for someone who survived an explosion, she's not that worse. I mean, she's got a burn on her face, and that's about it. But yeah, so now she's this mindless killing machine called the Taskmaster, whose big thing is that she can mimic the fighting style of anybody she fights. And
that's all. That's all you get, really.
That's it. And then she ends up Black Widow ends up saving her and breaking the brain control or whatever and making her normal again, and then she gets taken by the other widows, and they all live happily ever after again.
Yeah.
It's interesting that these widows didn't come up again. You'd think that they would have maybe come in handy with the Avengers, like everything they were doing, but after this, there's like at least 20 or 30 highly trained spies that are good now.
And we had the Red Guardian, the super soldier.
Oh, yeah. We also had Red Guardian, because that's so side actors do a good job with the characters, with the script they're given. They're all pretty likable. They're all pretty interesting. The mother character, she's like a scientist, and she's the one who came up with the mind control technology. And she has a bunch of pet pigs that she operates on. But she and Black Widow end up coming up with the master plan to like take over this bad guy, whatever, and they do it successfully. So they're all, and then at the end they kind of have this charming little moment of like family, and then and then she says, you guys go on, I'm gonna go ahead and handle the Ross, because Ross is after her this whole time for Sokovia Accords. He's basically irrelevant. She evades him very easily multiple times.
He honestly didn't need to be in the movie.
Yeah, he didn't need. I mean, I guess I get the idea is that she's on the run, but like,
I was just waiting for a reason why this movie was placed after Endgame, and there was no reason until the last 5 minutes and the last 1 minute for the post credits.
Well, and a fun fact about this movie, because I did because like I always do, I do a Wikipedia deep dive after I watched it, and apparently the production for this movie started all the way back in 2004. They had the rights to make a Black Widow movie, but they didn't end up doing it, didn't end up working out, and then the rights reverted back to Marvel, and then Marvel took a hold of the property, and in the early talks about introducing Black Widow into the MCU, originally they were thinking of Emily Blunt as Black Widow, which but she ended up turning the role down because she starred in some other movie that nobody's heard of, so I bet she's kicking herself for that decision, because she would have had a 10-year cash cow if she had accepted that role.
Well, I don't know if necessary, because she did get a interview question, do you regret not joining Marvel? She said no.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
She was like press conference for like Quiet Place 2.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I feel like it's a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, you get the steady, like, you get that sort of like set role, but then again, you kind of get like typecast and have a hard time like branching out into other things. I feel like after a while, or 10 years or so, you're like, I want to do other things. I want to be something else other than Captain America. So, I do think that maybe it gives you a little bit more flexibility, but still, that whatever she turned that role down for was not something that was particularly successful. But anyway, and you said John Krasinski also was in talks.
John Krasinski was going to be cast as Captain America, but then they decided to go with Chris Evans, I guess, because he's more... I actually don't know why.
So that's there's an alternate parallel timeline where Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, her husband, are both in the MCU. What an interesting world that would be.
But he has expressed that he's interested.
Yeah, he does want to be in Marvel, which, I mean, I'm sure they can find some place for him. Everybody, I mean, freaking Kit Harington's in it now. There's no limits. another, they're going to get you. Disney's going to sink their claws into you. You're going to
Disney
be
owns everything.
one of their franchises. There's no escape. But anyway, there was a point that I was making. Oh yeah. So anyway, there was a long process to making this movie happen, and like Scarlett Johansson had expressed that she wanted to make it, but that was like years ago, and there was a whole lot of stuff that ended up coming up before they finally were able to sit down and say, okay, here, we're going to make this thing. And Scarlett Johansson had basically told them, like, look, we need to go ahead and make this now if it's going to happen, because I'm getting tired of this, and I don't want to be running around in this cat suit forever. You know, I'm getting older. I don't want to do this forever. And so they finally said, okay, we'll go ahead and make it. But I just feel like it definitely should have happened before Endgame. It should have happened back in like 2016. This movie should have been released in 2016, 2017.
It should have been released right after Civil War.
Yeah, like I just don't. I mean, it would have made so much more sense, and we would have given a damn, because a lot of the like tension moments of this are not that tense, because you already know that she's going to survive.
Yep.
So when she's like flying through the sky, falling from a plane or whatever, and almost dies, it's like, well, she's not going to die, because she doesn't die until she gets to Vormir. So this is not that interesting.
Yep.
I did think maybe the sister was going to die. One of the family members might end up dying.
I thought maybe Red Guardian.
Yeah, I thought maybe him too. But he has this weird bit where he keeps talking about how he used to fight Captain America, even though that doesn't make sense timeline-wise, because Captain America didn't... He said he fought Captain America in the 80s, but Captain America didn't unfreeze until like 2011. So there's a big question there about, like, is he telling the truth? Is there a parallel universe situation going on? Who knows? I don't know.
I think he's just lying.
I mean, I guess, but he's so insistent on it. Like he has no. I mean, I could see him lying to the other prisoners, but he has no reason to lie to Natasha about it.
Yeah, that's true.
He asked her, like, does he talk about me? He's like, why would he ask that? I mean, you know, she wouldn't care one way or another, so I don't see why he would lie about it.
Yeah. Well, do you want to just wrap up with the post credits and?
Oh yeah. So okay, we'll talk about the post credit scene. That's the only thing that like chronologically happens in the modern day. And it's when, and apparently this was supposed to be Julia Louis-Dreyfus's first appearance. Like, she ends up appearing in Falcon and Winter Soldier, but remember, Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to come out after Black Widow, because that got delayed a year because of the Rona. And so so originally we were supposed to see her first in this movie, and she shows up in the post credits with when Florence Pugh's character is mourning Natalie, Natasha. Why do you want to call her Natalie? Who is dead at this point? Oh, Natalie is one of her aliases, though.
I think it is.
Yeah, it is. It's so she's got a very long list of aliases on the MCU wiki, and Natalie is one of them. Yeah. Anyway, and so she's at her headstone, which I leaned over and talked to John. I was like, I'm assuming that this is just like a memorial headstone, and they didn't like go get her body off Vormir. I don't even know how they could have done that.
They just open it up. The coffins. It has to be empty.
Yeah, like I really do think they must have just put the stone, which that happens sometimes if you can't recover the body. They just put the stone there. But I'm like, there's no way they actually have her buried here, because she's on another planet in another timeline, mind you. She dies in 2014.
Yep.
Because she goes back in time and then dies.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a whole thing. But Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, Contessa, whatever her name is, who's basically putting together like a team of anti-Avengers, like Avengers, but not necessarily good people. Like, she's already recruited John, what's his face?
U.S. agent,
as U.S. agent, aka fake Captain America. Yeah. And she's recruiting, or I guess she's already recruited Florence, because Florence, I keep calling her Florence, that's not her name in the movie, I can't remember her name in the movie. But she says something like, you're not supposed to bother me on my day off or whatever, so they clearly have already been talking. But yeah, I guess she's also part of this anti-Avengers team or whatever, and Contessa's like, Valentina is like, don't you want to get revenge on the man who killed your sister? And she shows her a picture of Hawkeye. And so I guess they're going to send her after Hawkeye, and that's either going to be something in the movie or more likely in the Hawkeye standalone show. That's
probably standalone show.
Yeah,
if I had to guess.
So yeah, that'll be interesting.
Hawkeye will eventually retire after the fourth time.
Yeah, he's really just trying to get out of it. He's like, man, I've done all of this nonsense. But yeah, so we will see that. And that's the only thing that like chronologically happened, you know. But I mean, they could have just as easily put that end credit scene in like any other movie.
Yep.
Like, they could have put that at the end of anything, even one of the TV shows. And as long as Black Widow had come out before, we would have already known who she was supposed to be. So like, there's her sister mourning her grave. Oh, look, here's what's happening. Like, this doesn't have to happen at the end of this movie.
It really
it's
doesn't.
Just like, I would say overall, I mean, it's a perfectly competent Marvel film, it stands up to the. It's like I enjoyed it more than Captain Marvel. And on that note, by the way, if we weren't talking about it, why didn't they make this instead of Captain Marvel? This is the movie that should have come out between those other movies.
I agree.
Because that would have made, it's like, I hesitate to say that I didn't really like Captain Marvel because I don't want to get lumped in with all the sexist morons who didn't like it for dumb reasons. But, like, I just didn't like it because I didn't have any reason to care about the character because she was just a random character they threw in at the last second. Whereas we've been getting to know Black Widow for a long time. I would have actually given a damn about her movie. Like, it would have been so much more relevant to put her standalone movie. Like, how about if you want to make a movie with the female lead, how about the one that we've already gotten to know and that we care about?
I think my problem with just Captain Marvel, I just feel like she has no charisma.
No, I don't think she has very much charisma either. No. I mean, she didn't seem to have much chemistry with the rest of the cast either, which really shows. And that's just like, that's hard to fake, even for movies. Like, if you don't have the chemistry you need with the rest of the cast. But even when she shows up in the movies, it's almost immediately kind of animosity.
It's pretty sad that they're forcing like 3 other heroes into her sequel movie just to get people hyped for it.
Yeah, it's rough. I did not hate. It's just that it didn't do much for me. And this movie I liked more than Captain Marvel, but I would still say I could have taken it or leave it. Like, this is not one of those movies where I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to come see this movie. We have to watch this again. Like, not really. I mean, you can watch it, but it's not going to really give you too much that you don't already know about the MCU. It's not like a groundbreaking film in any way. But I'm glad that ScarJo had a chance to make the movie because I knew that she wanted to make it, and this is her farewell to the character. And so for that purpose, I'm glad it exists and that she had a chance to like do the movie she really wanted to do. And we have female director and everything. So we always love that representation and stuff like that. So I'm glad it exists. Would I say that this is like, the most compelling Marvel film? No. After a year of Marvel drought, this is not the one to come back to and be like, oh yeah, I'm so pumped for Marvel movies again. It's just okay.
Yep. So, yeah, I guess we can give ratings, I guess.
Yeah. What's your rating?
Probably 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10? Yeah, it's 6.5 maybe.
Yeah.
Give it a little bit of boost, but perfectly fine. I think what the issue is that Marvel has raised the bar so much that they can't get away with fine anymore. It's like, if this were some other random studio making this movie, it would be great, but because it's Marvel, it's just fine. It's perfectly competent, it's watchable, but it's just okay.
If DC made this movie, I would say it's the best DC movie ever. But the problem is, this is Marvel.
Exactly. Well, exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the reason, it's like, if it was a studio that already had like kind of a bad reputation for making movies that didn't come out well, then this is a perfectly good film, a perfectly competent, watchable film. There's nothing glaringly horrendous or stupid about it. It's just, but by Marvel standards, it's
just okay.
Yeah. I think it'll be a little bit different, but I think they're going to have to change. I mean, if they don't want to get boring and lose their viewership, they're going to have to spice things up. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time when we talk about something else. I don't know, what movies are coming out soon that we might see?
Space Jam 2!
Oh, God. Yeah.